to get me wet? Who are you to get me wet? Did I ask you to get me wet? No!
Don't act like you didn't know this was coming. Hi, I'm LadyJenevia. As you may have ascertained by the title of this video, today we are going through the journey of Kate and Anthony's hand stuff. I chose this as a preferred format of being able to go through Kate and Anthony's relationship that allows me to have more of a focus with their material without having to delve into a lot of the other details of their stories as characters, the flashback scenes regarding Anthony's loss of his father, Kate's struggle to handle the Sharma family's finances after her father died, and Anthony and Kate's relationships in general with their families. I know there have been a lot of complaints from fans wishing there had been more screen time for Kate and Anthony together. I don't necessarily disagree. However, it would be inaccurate to say that they didn't have a lot of material because they definitely did, which is why I'm trimming it down for the sake of doing this video. I also want to give another reminder, which I'm probably going to just have to do on all of my Bridgerton videos from now on, since you never know when someone new is going to come wandering over to my channel for the first time. If you are a reader of the Bridgerton book series, please do not write anything about the books that have not yet been adapted into the seasons that have aired thus far in my comment section. I would like to avoid spoilers as much as it is possible to do so. You are free, however, to say as much as you'd like about The Duke and I and The Viscount Who Loved Me, since those seasons have already been released, and I've also read both of those books at the time of me recording and publishing this video. I'm deliberately waiting to read each book until after I watch the season adaptation, because I want to be surprised when watching new episodes for the first time.
Thank you.
I found it extremely compelling and fun to watch Bridgerton Season 2 for the first time, particularly when I realized that hand stuff would be a focal point of Kate and Anthony's relationship. It's not the first time I have observed a narrative within filmmaking that followed a character's hands, and I actually wanted to do a video about a very specific example of that same storytelling concept, but then the actor portraying the character had a lot of allegations made against them, and I didn't want anyone thinking that I was choosing to do that video topic just because their name was a very hot trending topic at the time. I may go back at some point and do a video about that topic since their name is no longer trending to that same degree. I still enjoy the way this concept was executed in the filmmaking and storytelling process, but for now, Bridgerton Season 2 has given me a unique opportunity to still talk about a story being told through hands. So let's go through this episode by episode. Given the stifling formality of the Regency setting, there isn't any noteworthy hand-to-hand contact between Kate and Anthony in episode 1. Typically, when people are meeting one another for the first time, they bow as opposed to shaking hands. So there tends to be very little physical contact for the members of the Ton unless they are dancing together at a ball. Women and men aren't even supposed to meet each other for the first time without a mutual acquaintance or just someone in that space making an introduction on their behalf.
Lady Danbury, I would be so honoured if you could facilitate a proper introduction. I fear my calling card got lost in the shuffle at your home this morning.
This is typical of Regency social formality, and it's observable in more works of fiction than just Bridgerton the show.
Miss Morland's gown. Miss Morland's gown is very pretty.
How can you be so
presumptuous? Indeed, without so much as an introduction.
Really, I shouldn't have allowed you to speak to him as a stranger. But he had such an understanding of muslin.
Huh? Let's talk about that.
Allow me to present to you Mr. Henry Tilney.
Now we may talk to one another.
We've already been talking.
And
You mustn't allow anyone to hear you say such things. We shall all be expelled from polite society.
Let me put my sausage roll in your chicken steak bake.
We do, however, get a couple of shots of Anthony's hands in episode 1 during his wife hunting montage. It's an effective way of emphasizing how he's a very business-first sort of person. He has had to handle the family's financial affairs since his father's untimely demise, and even the sexual intimacy he finds with women is treated as just another business transaction. Anthony's goal this season is to find a wife and pass on the title. And we see how he struggles to find a connection with any of the women he is spending time with. We see him dancing with a couple of women, and it's often a clunky, ill-fitted match, but his dance with Edwina goes better compared to the others we've already seen in that episode. Edwina has been well trained to find a husband that is a noble Englishman, and in a general sense, Antony and Edwina are a good match on paper, but there's no spark or fire. We don't get any lingering shots of their hands being connected or anything grandiose in the cinematic presentation of their hands being joined. Now we can jump ahead to episode 2. In one of my previous Bridgerton videos, I received a comment inquiring about the supposed hand on Kate's back during the race when we are shown a shot of Mr. Dorset speaking with Edwina about whether or not they should try to get these two feral sports people under control. At most, all we are able to see is the very tip of a finger, which leads me to speculate that this is not there to be a central point of focus. In this shot, Mr. Dorset is the main subject, and everything about the way he's framed and the general composition of the shot leads me to believe that this really isn't all that worth discussing or including in the larger journey of Kate and Antony's hand stuff. They still have not touched hands in episode 2, though we do get to see Antony fencing with his brothers, and I think it works in a way to further set up both Kate and Antony as having many things in common. To put it informally, they're both feral sports people. Kate's first character introduction is her riding on a horse, unchaperoned, and with great vigor. She rides with purpose, she rides with athleticism in a way that would be considered unbecoming of a proper lady of the ton. Antony's fencing is a way of showing his relationship with his brothers, but also how competitive he is.
Do you know why I win every time? Because every time you lose, you claim we cheated.
This fencing sequence, combined with the competitive banter between Kate and Antony at the Danbury residence and the races, works well together to build up to the fan favorite Pall Mall scene.
Is this yours?
Oh, no. You're welcome to it.
You near threatened to beat me the last time I touched that.
You exaggerate.
The first episode where we really get the beginning of what I would consider to be their capital H, capital S, hand stuff is of course episode 3. I've only included everything else I've mentioned from episodes 1 and 2 thus far so that it doesn't feel as abrupt of an introduction to their relationship. The first time we get hand-to-hand contact between Kate and Antony is when they go unchaperoned into the woods to retrieve their Pall Mall balls. We've already established by this point that Kate has no problem getting down and dirty if it means having fun outdoors. So she marches right into the mud to get her ball, prompting Antony to do the same. But she finds herself stuck in the mud, so she reaches out to Antony for help. On a first watch, it can be seen as a fairly innocuous case of hands touching, overshadowed by the very cute, let's fall into the mud together.
Oh!
But if you've rewatched the season multiple times like I have, you can see this as Kate reaching out both literally and figuratively, which is an important breakthrough in their relationship. She has already decided she doesn't approve of him because Antony made a terrible impression on her. Both of them, but especially Kate, have displayed bull-headed tendencies, not to mention their extreme competitiveness. Neither one of them is keen to do something that would mean losing in general, but especially when it comes to each other. Kate reaching out to Antony in the larger picture of their relationship is an important step in cracking the walls they have built up. And that's why there is a payoff of them laughing with each other. I've seen some incorrect claims made by different people on YouTube that this is the first time Antony has laughed in season 2. That is false. Rewind it back to episode 2 when Antony tried to call on Edwina, as did every other diamond-chasing man of the ton, and Kate started popping off like the legend she is. And how did Antony react to this?
Unless, of course, she was on her honeymoon by then. Did I say something funny?
I believe you did.
Now, I know I said the point of this video is to focus on Kate and Anthony's hand stuff, which we are and we will continue to do, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't keep the facts in order, particularly when you recall that Daphne says to Anthony on his wedding day,
"I witnessed you change the day he died. Do you know you did not even weep once? You stopped laughing. Altogether, in fact."
This man stopped laughing after his father died, and who made him laugh? Who brought him back to life? Kate did. Because why?
Wow. True. Wow.
So let's push it back to episode 3. We've got Kate and Anthony's first noteworthy incident of hand stuff, and what does it lead to? The first time they laugh together. These two, who are carrying the weight of their family's financial burdens on their shoulders, finally getting a moment to just laugh, enjoy life.
Get married, make babies.
But now let's go to the first moment I knew I was dealing with a whole other beast, and that this romance was going to be unlike anything I had ever seen before. The bee scene. We all know what happened. Kate got stung by a bee. Anthony had himself a panic attack. And what does Kate do? She grabs his hand and puts it over her heart and helps him steady his breathing.
I have been harmed.
Everyone who heard me say in my first Bridgerton video to keep an eye out for thumb action in the midst of all of this Kate and Anthony hand stuff, there are multiple examples of that, but this is the first time that we see it. She rubs her thumb on the top of his hand. She is comforting this man whom she has been so standoffish towards, and that's his own fault for running his mouth. But now all of these ideas they have about decorum are just thrown out the window, and they are running entirely on emotion, adrenaline, instinct. She's got older sibling adultification syndrome, so it's completely natural for her to start being the caretaker. She's already been doing this for an undisclosed amount of time since we didn't get to see Kate's flashback scenes because apparently we had to have more cutaways to stories about cousins marrying cousins and fake gemstones.
Not you.
So now she is nurturing Anthony. He has never dealt with any of this. His trauma is fully triggered right now, and all the rigid Regency social norms, they're gone. These two have jumped 50 steps forward in their relationship and their emotional intimacy. I know some people wanted them to kiss sooner or do other stuff sooner, but this bee scene was so heavily loaded with emotional weight, and this was only happening in episode 3. There are rom-coms that I have a lot of fun watching that never hit the romantic impact of this bee scene, of Kate taking his hand and putting it on her heart and rubbing her thumb across the top of his hand.
You should get going.
Mm-hmm. Another noteworthy distinction between the earlier hand stuff in episode 3 is that Kate still had her gloves on, whereas this hand stuff is skin-to-skin contact in more ways than one. See, this is why I made the executive decision to just keep this video about the hand stuff, because look how much I have to say, and we're only just now wrapping on episode 3.
You are welcome.
Episode 4, we have the hunting excursion, and it becomes a crossover with The Princess Diaries 2. Let me show you how to use a British gun, Kate. And again, it's this hand-to-hand contact, these gorgeous cinematic shots in slow motion, blurred edges, drop the audio of the forest ambiance, and use audio of them breathing, and the blatant smelling.
Can I have it? No. Can I have it?
What happened right before this hand stuff? They were bickering, surprise, surprise, but more than that, they were trying to deny their feelings for each other that were made apparent during the bee scene.
You were overcome.
Indeed, I was not.
You were the one who then looked at me.
You looked at me?
Not in the way that you did.
And how exactly did I look?
2 seconds later.
There is a lot of self-denial between these two. That's one of several reasons why it takes so long for them to finally get together romantically. It takes more or less the entire season.
He can be exasperating.
He is incorrigible. The two of you cannot seem to stay away from one another.
Because she is aggravating.
Oh, is that what I just witnessed?
So this hand stuff is a way of cutting through that denial and emphasizing that these two are drawn to each other. Just because your stubborn mind is saying one thing doesn't mean your heart and soul and bodies are in agreement with your self-denial brains. Now we get to the library scene. Some of you might be thinking, well, they didn't touch hands in this scene. We just got some feral eye contact. I know. However, we do get some shots that put the focus on Kate giving back the book that she had taken off of the shelf, and Anthony explaining about how this was his father's library and that these books were some of his most cherished possessions. And most importantly, we see Anthony give the book back to her. This is further communicating how Anthony is sharing an extremely personal, private, and vulnerable part of himself with her. Anthony doesn't have a more sensitive wound than the loss of his father. Though we don't unpack as much to do with Kate losing her father or her birth mother, I think they needed to show Anthony's trauma to the general audience more because he was a real scallywag in season 1, and the audience needed to know why they should be rooting for him in this season to find love. Anthony ends the season in a better emotional state, so going into season 3, if they would like to unpack more of Kate's feelings about losing both of her birth parents, he will be more equipped to help her and to perform emotional labor. Hopefully the writers will go there because I, and many other viewers I'm sure, would love to see it. But as for this hand stuff, I love that he gives her the book back because it makes his sharing more tangible. And the fact that he goes all feral eye contact on her right after giving her back this book, it shows that he's not only interested in physical attraction, but emotional intimacy. And that's a perfect example of how and why the emotional edging is so effective this season. They make sure they build an entire house of emotional intimacy between these two characters before they let those two live inside of it. Then we go to the ball where Kate and Anthony have their first dance. This is naturally going to lead to a lot of hand-to-hand contact. Yes, she has gloves on, but the hand stuff is a means of keeping these two in close proximity to each other for an extended period of time. With this uptight Regency setting, you wouldn't be this physically close to someone, especially when you're not married, and especially in public, unless you two are dancing with each other. And yet again, the physical proximity facilitates further emotional intimacy. But there's something unintentionally funny about having this couple doing this dance at this particular point in their story, because they're literally and figuratively dancing around their feelings for each other. You can see that Anthony is desperate for this woman, and he's very bad at hiding it.
It does not matter what I want.
I do not think that is true.
This man has spent the last decade caring so much for his family and tending to their needs, and now the woman he is falling fast and falling hard for is expressing those same tendencies. And he wants her to know that what she wants matters. He is validating her feelings and her needs, and also, considering what happens after this dance, we can see that the dance and all of the hand stuff put into context of the larger narrative is foreplay.
I hate you.
My personal favorite hand stuff in their first dance is this, because palm to palm is Holy Palmer's kiss. There isn't really any hand stuff in that feral little encounter Daphne walks in on, but of course, we all know that Anthony gets spooked by his conversation with Daphne, prompting him to close off this episode by proposing to Edwina.
Miss Edwina Sharma.
Why do they... Why?
Will you marry me?
Why do they breathe?
And that piece of information is important context to the next hand stuff, which takes place in episode 5, the Pinkies.
The Shaw.
This blew up on social media when it was released in the promo for season 2, and understandably so. There are two main points to note about the meaning of this incident of hand stuff. One, it's a gesture of yearning, Regardless of this predicament they're in, of Antony being engaged to Edwina, which is entirely his fault, we know who he really wants. They're telling us, the audience, that they yearn for each other, even if it's just their pinkies. It's a physical expression of reaching for each other. And I love the contrast of their formal greetings with this forbidden yearning expressed through their hand stuff. The other thing that's presumably intentional about this expression of feeling through hand stuff is in reference to an Indian wedding tradition. I'm going to just read a quick explanation I pulled off of Google. If any Indian viewers would like to correct or clarify any details, please go ahead and do so in the comments. I am by no means claiming to be any sort of expert on Indian culture. In South Indian tradition, it is customary that the couple take 7 steps due south, with the groom leading his bride by her pinky finger around the fire. The alternating positions of the couple, as well as who is leading each step, varies across the country based on region and religion. I had seen some comments floating around online about how this pinky shot was a cultural reference to Indian wedding ceremonies, but my quick Googling led me to not only that reference, which was specifically citing South India, it got me curious about the fact that both Simone and Charithra are Tamil, and apparently Tamil Nadu is a state in South India, so that appears to line up quite well. Again, I'm not an expert on India and all of the different regions of India. It's a massive country with billions of people, and really one of the only things I know about India right now is that a lot of workers have been going on strike, and the mainstream media of the global north have not been reporting on it. But I will just say, good for the workers of India for demanding what's right and what's fair. So we move from a pinky reference to Indian weddings to an actual wedding ring. I love this scene for many reasons, but if we focus just on the hand stuff, we have this lingering shot of their hands where Kate has the wedding ring on and Antony rubs his thumb across her hand. I'm telling you, the thumb action between these two always makes me want to fly onto the roof. But this lingering shot and the two of them staring at her hand with the ring on, which he is holding in his hand, it's a way of taking their inner contemplation and pondering about the idea of them being together and making it more tangible. It's making it real in a way that they're clearly not ready to deal with yet. So you can see that they're stunned by the sight of something that suggests the possibility of them being married to each other, of being in love with each other, and presumably other more salacious things that I will not say, but I'm sure you can fill in the blanks. Then we jump ahead to the lake scene, which is just full of hand stuff. If we didn't have the Regency wet t-shirt contest in this scene, I'm fairly confident that this entire lake sequence would be known for the hand stuff. Well, that and the slow pan on Antony's jealous smoldering, and that jealous smolder is a perfect segue to the first noteworthy hand stuff of this scene, which is not actually between Kate and Antony, but Kate and Mr. Dorset. Hand stuff is a central pillar of Kate and Antony's love language. So him seeing her not only with another man, but seeing them hand in hand, even though Dorset is being polite and helpful in assisting her into the boat, is he interested in her? Sure, but him helping her to get into a boat is not inherently a grand romantic overture. But Antony is a jealous mess. He can't see or hear anything else but Kate. So you know, as soon as any other man went hand to hand with her, his Kate sense started tingling, alarm bells and sirens started going off, and he had to get himself over there.
That knot will never hold.
It is perfectly adequate.
Then I must question your nautical skills, Dorset. Allow me.
Look at these cool knots I can tie, Kate. Validate me, Kate. Take my hand instead, Kate. No other man ever needs to help you in and out of boats, Kate. I can do it myself. Let me poke a little fun at Antony, please. He makes it so easy. You have some nerve, sir, to be so upset by your sister pointing out that you were clearly falling in love with Kate, that you responded by proposing to Kate's sister, Edwina. All Kate did was be assisted into a boat by a man whom you're friends with, and now you can't even keep it together.
Miss Sharma.
Lord Bridgerton.
But not only does Anthony help her out of the boat, he has to linger and rub his thumb over her hand. And how does she respond? She rubs her thumb over his hand. But since she has a little bit more self-control and self-awareness than he does, he's clearly the more feral one in this relationship, she pulls away because she knows they're in public. She knows he's engaged to her sister. And she also knows the stakes of what happens if she messes up this match. So she pulls away, and what does he do? Which all of the fans were pointing out, by the way, because this shot was in the promo. He reaches out for her. Don't let go of me, Kate. Love me, love me. Say that you love me, Kate. Love me, say that you love me. I love this whole mini arc of the hand stuff during this lake scene, and how the culmination of it is Anthony falling into the lake because this man deserves to be embarrassed. What? You got yourself into this mess. This is entirely your fault. But we can't leave episode 5 without mentioning. Do you even know all the ways a lady can be seduced? The things I could teach you. I know this isn't technically hand stuff, but I just want to mention it in case I don't have another opportunity to mention it under the umbrella of a different Bridgerton video topic. I love the way he is so gentle in handling her in this scene. I've said here and there that I read the book after watching the season, and I did not like how physically aggressive Book Anthony was, and I think a lot of rom-com or romance writers in general could learn from this, that a man being gentle with his hands can still be attractive. Not everything has to be so rough. A gentle cradling of her face, pushing a strand of hair back, this whole scene is everything. Episode 6, The Choice, and what a choice it was to have the inciting incident of the dissolution of the Anthony and Edwina engagement be Kate and Anthony hand stuff. The wedding bangle falling off, truly the entire universe conspired to get these two together by possessing inanimate objects, the wedding ring that didn't want to get off Kate's finger, the bangle that refused to stay on Kate's wrist, all of the moving pieces that led up to this moment of hand stuff. Even on his wedding day to another woman, the only thing he could see in front of him, in his mind and in his heart, was Kate. So not even impending matrimony to another woman that happens to be her sister could keep them apart. But of course, there are serious ramifications to breaking up on a wedding day. So when they finally have that moment alone in the closet, what do we get? More hand stuff. And Anthony saying, just wait. Because they know they're at risk of one hell of a fallout in this gross, judgmental culture of the ton, and they don't feel like it's a given that they can just be together. We as the viewers, we can watch this and go, stop being ridiculous, just kiss and make up, have babies, but they're not there yet. They don't feel like they can be together, so they just want to linger in this moment. Also, Edwina has not called off the wedding yet at this point, but of course she does later on in this episode, and that opens things up to their first kiss, which technically does not really fit under the umbrella of hand stuff, but I do appreciate that Simone Ashley was so consistent in grabbing Jonathan Bailey's hair during their kissing scenes. Miss Ashley knows that details are important. I debated whether or not to include this next thing since it doesn't really fall under the umbrella of hand stuff, but on the offhand chance that I don't get another opportunity to mention it, Anthony brings the Sharma women flowers in episode 7, and if I had to guess, this was likely an Easter egg reference for the book fans because Anthony gives Kate flowers in the book, and it's kind of a big deal within that story because Kate is treated and regarded as more of a plain Jane wallflower in that narrative, and there's this constant emphasis on her not thinking that she's pretty. It's a very different characterization from Kate in the show, so it doesn't really make sense to turn Anthony giving her flowers into a spectacle on the show, but I think it's a cute little detail to still include since it doesn't take up too much screen time or derail the show's version of this story, and this way way, the book fans who really wanted to see Anthony give Kate flowers in live action are able to do so. He also brings her flowers in the final episode when he comes to see her after she's woken up after her accident, but this is cuter because you actually get to see him hand them to her. But since this is a video about hand stuff, we can jump to the end of episode 7, when the Bridgertons and the Sharmas have their joint ball, the one that no one comes to. That's fine with me. I would have much rather gone to this ball anyway, since these are the only families I like. Plus, we have Lady Danbury there, so really it's all of my favorite people. This is the show I wanted to see. Anthony decides, everybody else, we're going to dance anyway. It's a cute little We Are Family number, but we do see Kate and Anthony briefly dancing together at the end of the number, and that serves as a sort of prelude to The Garden. One of the most circulated examples of hand stuff comes from that garden. That's not the only thing that's come. As we all know, the tension finally hits a breaking point and they consummate their relationship. There is a lot of action, a lot of hands touching things, caressing things, and I don't think I can show most of it. But if I can figure out how to crop things well enough, I will at least try to show a very specific example of hand stuff during this scene, because it's beautifully shot and the camera puts so much focus on that exchange of them holding hands, even when Anthony is... You know what? I have no clever euphemisms to offer. Being a service top.
How's that sexual tension this morning?
What I love about this shot is that hand stuff has been such a prominent part of the visual storytelling of their relationship, and with all of the emotional edging these two put us and each other through, there was so much care and attention to detail put into the design of this part of the show. There are different directors working all over this season. Each director has 2 episodes, but clearly there was some type of coordination, some sort of memo or meetings, I don't know exactly what, but something to communicate to all of these different directors, the editors, and even for a scene like this, presumably the intimacy coordinator as well, to ensure that we still get to see the love story of these two being told through their hand stuff. Even when the emotional edging has finally paid off, they're not just presuming, well, they're all over each other, they're using their hands, that's sufficient. No, we're going to get a close shot with their hands as the main focus to emphasize their closeness through hand holding, which is not something you would expect to be a powerful moment in a scene like this. Typically, hand holding is a form of physical contact and physical intimacy you get to see earlier on in a romantic relationship. But for these two, it's always part of the story, even in this scene. After the consummation, Kate gets spooked, she runs off, riding into the rain, and when Anthony tries to catch up to her, she has an accident, which, by the way, I love that we actually get to see the accident happen, because in the book, Anthony catches up to her when the accident has already happened, and me personally, as a viewer, I'm here for the drama of it all. It's a great way to close the penultimate episode of the season, and then the final episode opens with him going and tending to her, and he sees her blood on his hand. Now that is some drama. I love drama when it's fictional, and he carries her back inside. She is still running away from her feelings for him. Some habits are kind of hard to break. But when we reach the end of the episode, Edwina has determined that life is too short to hold a grudge over the hurt that Kate and Anthony caused her. Edwina gives Kate her blessing and encourages Kate to be her best self and follow her heart and be with Anthony. And Kate does exactly that. Anthony is ready to walk away because he's very good at respecting her wishes even when it's not what he personally wants, because unlike book Anthony, he knows what consent is and he respects what she wants. And we get this cute little hand moment.
How many?
3.
Which, if you're not already familiar, is a reference to how many children they eventually have in the book series. I don't know if they will do that in the show. Presumably they will have to figure out the best way to pace the growing of that particular family unit when it's already a jam-packed ensemble of a show, but we'll see. So then we get the final dance, which is when not only do we have more hand stuff, but we also get an approving smile from the Queen, and her approval is essential to shutting down the snide comments from the rest of the ton.
That wedding did not happen because I simply changed my mind.
If you watched my Bridgerton video about who can see Kate and Anthony's feelings and how it's only people who have been in love that are good at clocking them, especially earlier on in the season, this does in a way follow in line with that, since by this point the Queen has been given more airtime and we can better understand that she's not as tough or as hard as she often presents herself to be. And even though things are more complicated now, she does have a great love for her husband. The most memorable hand stuff from this dance, though, is of course when their hands are joined and raised above their heads and slowly lowered down their faces. And I like to interpret this choreography as being symbolic of them finally lowering the last of their walls and barriers that they've been allowing to keep them apart up until this point. All the economic anxiety intertwined with trying to get Edwina married, and that drama with the Sheffield's dowry, their eldest child adultification syndrome, and in general their fear and anxiety to finally let themselves love each other and think of their own happiness for once. And then Simone does this beautiful thing with her face, and I think that's so important because it aligns perfectly with this hand choreography. I look at that whole sequence and I liken it to her taking a mask off. Kate is so guarded, she's always tried to keep things hidden. Anthony is the one who lacks subtlety, he's never been good at hiding how feral he is, but now she's finally showing the depths of her feelings and her emotions. It's as close to being a confession of love as you can get without actually saying the words. And the hand stuff was an important part of that sequence. When we get to that final scene of the party where we get their mutual confessions of love, you don't see as much of a focus put on putting their hands into a shot where the entire focus is on their hands. And I think that's probably at least partially a creative choice born from the fact that they've been trying so hard for 7.5 episodes to not let those feelings out. Showing how they're feeling through their hands was a way of providing the audience with more information that these two are not always going to express with their words. But in that scene, under the fireworks, they're finally free and open and honest with their declarations of love and their mutual agreement to spend the rest of their lives together. And that is gorgeous.
I love you. I love you.
I'd rather fight with you than make love with anyone else.
I do not think there is anything else to say other than I love you too.
So that is the journey of Kate and Anthony's hand stuff. I know it was long. I did try to find a balance between trimming their relationship down to mostly just hand stuff, but also being thorough in covering the relevant material of this trajectory of their relationship. Let me know what you thought of Kate and Anthony's hand stuff, as well as my video about it. Like, comment, and subscribe if you would like to see even more of the Bridgerton videos I have planned. I do have other plans to do some shorter videos about other things, perhaps some rom-coms, since my next Bridgerton video is one I really want to be thorough in its execution.
Why waste 10 more seconds on that horse's ass when Mr. Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down is waiting for you over there?
But that doesn't mean that I want to just disappear for weeks without uploading anything. So, I will see you when I see you. Bye!